English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has received the Tunisian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Tunisians Abroad, Nabil Ammar, who carries a message from the President of the Republic of Tunisia, Kais Saied. The Chiefs of Staff of the Armies of the Economic Community of West African State, ECOWAS, today started their meeting in Accra, Ghana, to discuss possible military intervention after the coup in Niger. And the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has condemned the continuing crimes committed by the Zionist occupation against the Palestinian people, calling it organized crime. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has received the Tunisian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Tunisians Abroad, Nabil Ammar, Special Envoy, bearing a message from his brother Kais Saied, the President of the Republic of Tunisia, according to a press release from the Presidency of the Republic. The meeting took place in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has hailed the support of the American administration to the work of the UN Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura. Jamal Silmani has more details.
In an interview with Al Monitor, a news website based in Washington, Attaf evoked the U.S. statement issued after his meeting on the 9th of August with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in which the head of the U.S. diplomatic corps reiterated his full support for the efforts of the UN Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, as he intensively consults with all the concerned parties to reach a political solution. In this regard, he stressed that the Biden administration did not at all approve former U.S. President Donald Trump's decision regarding Morocco's alleged sovereignty over the Western Sahara. He said, on the contrary, it explicitly distances itself from the position expressed by the former U.S. President. With regard to relations between Algeria and the United States, the foreign minister said that the two sides are working to strengthen the Algerian-American friendship. He was delighted to say that a major importance was granted to these relations over the last 2 years in terms of political dialogue. In this respect, Mr. Attaf felt that the presence of American oil and gas companies in Algeria was one of the signs of the important relations between the two countries. The minister also spoke of relations between Algeria and China and the recent visit by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, to China in mid-July, where he signed almost 20 agreements with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. In particular, he pointed out that Algeria chose the principle of national interest in its international relations. Referring to the crisis in Ukraine, the minister announced that Algeria, which will take up a non-permanent seat on the Security Council in 2024, supported a political solution within the United Nations.
And the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, who is also President of the Union of the Councils of Member States of the Organization of Islamic Conference, has condemned the terrorist attack perpetrated on August 13 against the Shah Shura Shrine in Shiraz, Iran, which left several people dead and injured. Following this tragic event, Ibrahim Boughali offered his condolences to the President of the Iranian Shura Council and through him to all the families of the victims. On this occasion, he expressed his solidarity with the families of the victims at this difficult time, wishing a speedy recovery to the injured. The Minister of Interior, Local Assemblies and Country Planning, Brahim Merad, has said in the province of Khanshla that the construction of the railway line between the towns of Khanshla and Ain al-Bayda, al-Bouaghi, will help boost the region's development. On the second day of his working visit to the province of Khanshla, Brahim Merad underlined during an inspection of the progress of the work on this 50 kilometers railway line that this project will make the province of Khanshla an important economic hub. The Minister of Finance, Aziz Fayed, has underlined the need to complete the digitization program for the national administration of the national real estate before the end of September, stressing the importance of this program in optimizing operations and improving the quality of land services. The president of the Higher Youth Council, Mustafa Hidawi, has presided over the kickoff of the meetings of the council's specialized commissions in its ordinary session. In a statement to the press on the sidelines of these meetings, Mustafa Hidawi said that the 8 committees of the council would be meeting in Constantine until 24 August to debate, study and deal with a series of issues relating to young people and to put forward proposals for improving the situation of Algerian youth. To the international arena now, the chiefs of staff of the armies of the Economic Community of West African State, ECOWAS, today started their meeting in Accra, Ghana, to discuss a possible military intervention after the coup in Niger. Nigeria's Chief of Staff, General Christopher Gwabin Musa, indicated that the meeting goal is not just to react to events but to be proactive and establish a path that leads to peace and support stability. Meanwhile, the German Foreign Ministry said that Berlin is seeking EU sanctions against the perpetrators of the coup in Niger. It added that German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has recently held talks with her French counterpart Catherine Colonna and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken devoted to the situation in Niger, stressing that Germany supports African efforts to resolve the crisis in the country. And several African presidents are participating in the 43rd Ordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government, slated to convene today and tomorrow in Luanda, Angola. Under the theme Human and Financial Capital, the key drivers for sustainable industrialization of the SADC region, the summit aims to address critical factors that contribute to regional industrialization. This includes bolstering the technical capacity and numbers of human resources within the context of climate change and the fourth industrial revolution, alongside ensuring robust financial resources for more sustainable funding mechanisms. The 43rd Ordinary SADC Summit will critically review the progress made on the SADC Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan 2020-2030 and the SADC Industrialization Strategy and Roadmap for 2015-2063. Still in Africa, the chairperson of the African Union, Moussa Faki Mahamat, is following closely and with serious concern the continued military confrontations in the Amhara region of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. The chairperson reaffirms the African Union's firm attachment to the constitutional order, territorial integrity, unity and national sovereignty of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia to ensure stability in the country and in the region. In this regard, the chairperson strongly called for the parties to immediately cease the fighting and ensure the protection of civilians. He further urged the parties to engage in dialogue and reach a peaceful solution. To the burning Middle East file, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has condemned the continuing crimes committed by the Zionist occupation forces against the Palestinian people, calling them organized terrorism. The crimes of the Zionist occupation are an extension of open warfare and organized terrorism throughout the occupied Palestinian territories and blatant violation of international humanitarian law, wrote the OIC in a statement quoted by the Wafa news agency. More details with our colleague Said Bougazi.
The Islamic organization called on the international community to assume its responsibilities and take effective measures to put an end to the crimes of the ongoing Zionist occupation, hold the perpetrators accountable, and provide international protection to the Palestinian people. The spokesman for the Palestinian presidency, Nabil Abu Rudaina, said Wednesday that the continuation of Zionist crimes destabilizing the entire region. He condemned in particular the endless incursions by the Zionist occupation forces and its settlers into Palestinian towns and villages, leading to the arrest of dozens of Palestinians and the destruction of their property. Israeli bulldozers today demolished a Palestinian-owned school in El Qaboun Bedouin community in the village of Kafr Malik, east of the occupied West Bank city of Ramallah. The head of the Kafr Malik Village Council, Najah Rustam, told Wafa that the occupation forces, reinforced with military bulldozers, stormed the Bedouin community of El Qaboun, east of the town, and demolished the only school in it, known as the Ras et-Tin School. He added that the residents of the Bedouin community were recently forced to leave the area due to the ongoing Israeli settler attacks on them and their properties. Zionist occupation forces also targeted today a Palestinian-owned vehicle during a raid in the village of Burqa, northwest of the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Local sources told Wafa that the occupation forces broke into the said village, opened fire directly at a vehicle while its driver was still inside. They also added that the forces raided and ransacked a number of houses in the village.
Progress towards a political solution to Yemen's conflict is being held back by the continued exchange of threats between the government and Houthi rebels, the UN Special Envoy told the UN Security Council. Jamal Silmani has more.
Despite a lull of more than a year in the fighting between the Houthi rebels and the internationally recognized government, the UN has struggled to bring both sides to the negotiating table. The UN Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grundenberg, said in a briefing to the Security Council late on Wednesday that public threats to return to arms as well as economic warfare between the government and rebels were undermining peace efforts. Mr. Grundenberg said intermittent fighting continued, but hostilities between the Houthis and government had not returned to levels seen before a 6-month UN-brokered truce that ended in October. He singled out 6 frontline areas, including Taiz, Yemen's third largest city, which has been under siege by the Houthis since 2016, Hodeidah, where Yemen's main port is located, and the oil-rich eastern province of Marib, which the Houthis attempted to seize in 2021. Mr. Grundenberg said discussions with both sides showed general willingness to seek solutions, but this still needs to translate into concrete steps, in particular a clear agreement on the way forward that includes restarting an inclusive Yemeni political process. He called on both sides to refrain from escalatory rhetoric and continue to use channels established under the truce to de-escalate incidents.
And the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator Martin Griffiths has expressed the UN's commitment to do everything possible to protect humanitarian workers across the world, ensure their safety, and hold accountable violations of international humanitarian law, notably on the occasion of World Humanitarian Day. The United Nations celebrates World Humanitarian Day on August 19. This date was chosen in memory of the UN staff who lost their lives in the attack on the UN assistance mission in Iraq in 2003. A total of 22 people were killed that day and more than 100 were injured. Many of them were working for the UN, including Iraqis. And the UN has said that 62 humanitarian workers have been killed around the world since the start of the year, while preparing to commemorate 20 years later the anniversary of the bloody attack on its headquarters in Baghdad. In addition to the 62 humanitarian workers killed since the start of the year in conflict zones, 84 have been injured and 34 kidnapped, according to the Aid Worker Security Database compiled by the British consultancy Humanitarian Outcomes. For the whole of 2022, the number of humanitarian workers killed was put at 116. With this, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for our weekly programs devoted to culture by my colleague Mazar Al-Sfar and Aziza Gassi. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and bye-bye for now.
Surrounded by the sea and the mountains, rivers and waterfalls, Melbu takes its name from a Spanish woman who arrived as a shipwreck survivor. Her knowledge of medicine earned her great respect among the local population and immortalized her as the town's protectress. At the Yemagurea grotto, H's and people make offerings, reveal that villagers still seek for a miracle. Today, old villagers still recount the tales of Melbu, even though the younger generation is more skeptical. Another local legend claims that in May 1945, when villagers gathered on the Melbu beach to flee French troops, they were saved by the apparition of an old woman on the rocks. From that day forward, women have come to this place, called Takhalwit al-Marsa, or the Old Lady of the Port, to light candles to guarantee their fertility. Along with scenic waterfalls, beaches and rocky mountains, the Béjaïa coastal region is also home to Algeria's oldest Homo sapien, the 16,000-year-old Afalou man. His bones are now in the Algiers Museum. 5 kilometers from Melbu is Souq al-Tnin, known for its beautiful beaches and legendary market. By the 16th century, the village had become the region's top destinations for traveling merchants to promote their wares. The nearby Auqas caves with their dramatic stalactites and stalagmites are another popular tourist attraction. Close to Auqas is the seaside resort town of Tishi. In the mid-1970s, then President Houari Boumediene inaugurated one of the largest vacation complexes in the Hall of Post-Independence Algeria. Béjaïa attracts thousands of visitors every year.
On t'a donné la vie, une âme, un corps qui rit, des yeux pour voir.
The villages of Tishi, Auqas, Souq al-Tnin and Melbu are considered to be lands of warriors, wise men, poets and singers. Among one of these singers is Jamal Allam. Jamal Allam was born in Béjaïa, a city of the Kabylia seaside in Algeria. Since his childhood, he attends the Municipal Music Conservatory, where he is initiated to the Shabi and Andalusian repertoire. Later, he'll make noted appearances in the region's modern music groups. He leaves Béjaïa in 1967 and arrives in Marseille, France. There, he'll be a stagehand in the Theatre du Gymnase, and that's where he'll be in close contact with Brassens, Moustaki, Bobby Lapointe, Patrice Chéreau, Marcel Maréchal, and especially Léo Ferré. It's because of Bernard Lavillier, a singer and friend, that he goes to Paris and performs from the Rive Gauche.
On t'a donné une voix pour nous chanter ta joie et vérité. Des mains pour travailler, bercer ou caresser, joli bébé. Tu as chanté, personne n'a écouté.
When he goes back to Algeria in 1971, he becomes a radio presenter and producer for the station Chaîne 3 International. But he also an artistic director for the La Voûte in Moretti, Algiers suburbs. Jamal invites Marc Augeret, of course Léo Ferré, as well as many other singers, which makes Mohamed Isyakhan and Katib Yassine, both accustomed patrons, very happy. Songwriter Jamal Allam interprets his songs in Berber. He makes his first big concert in Algiers. In 1973, his first album, Maladural, is released and will be acclaimed by both the media and the public. Between 1978 and 1985, Jamal releases 3 albums. Les Rêves du Vent in 1978, Sisliman in 1981, and Salimou in 1985. In 1986, he returns to Algeria where he creates his own entertainment company to put his experience in favor of young Algerian artists. When he goes back to Paris, he records Mouloud, a painful testimony about the October events of which he witnessed during the last stay in Algeria. Le Chant des Sources, released in the 90s, is a testimonial of the entire work revisited in an unplugged way. With the complicity of his friend Safi Boutella, he releases in 2001 the album Gouraya, where music and lyrics claim to be deeply anchored in tradition and served in a simple orchestration full of modernity. It's been 30 years that Jamal Alam goes from experience to adventures, from meetings to discoveries.